details. So now I just want to share with you guys how things have gone with us this past year. We have already done some Charlotte Mason things. We are a very eclectic homeschool. I like to pick and choose what I want to do, and I adjust and observe, basically. So, you know, I have 6 kids ranging from 10 years old to 1 year old. So right now I am homeschooling a almost 5th grader, a 2nd grader, a 1st grader, a kindergartner, and a preschooler. And so the way I homeschool is I have, you know, my tried and true tools, and then I use them with the kids, and then I just observe. I observe their learning style, I observe my teaching style, I observe how it gels with that particular kid, and then I adjust as needed. And that works really well for us because I don't like to be locked into one way of doing things, and I want to be able to cater our homeschooling to our children. So that works really well for us. But what I noticed this past year as I'm observing is that our language arts was no longer working for us, or probably more accurately, it really wasn't as effective as it could be, and it was becoming busy work. So I just kind of started watching and thinking about that, and I was thinking, okay, every day they would go through this language arts curriculum that was a very good curriculum, and they would go through it, but they really weren't retaining it, and they really weren't able to apply what they learned to other areas of their learning. You know, I would see them making the same mistakes even though they just learned about that in their language arts. They were making those same mistakes in their notebooking or whatever. And for the most part, I just let it go. I would correct them when it was necessary, and I would just kind of observe and watch because, you know, I figured they would learn eventually. They would get it eventually. And then I noticed with my 10-year-old, when he was 9, last year, I noticed that he just wasn't getting it, and it was getting frustrating for him, these various language arts pieces. And it was really becoming just busy work. He could complete the lesson, and he could do it right, you know, do it right on the worksheet or when we were talking, but then he wouldn't actually retain that information. And so it reminded me a little bit back when we had just toddlers. You know, and when you're a parent, you kind of freak out over every little thing that you don't really understand, and you're trying to teach them something and they just aren't getting it. And, you know, over time you just kind of relax with that stuff. But one of the things was colors. You know, my toddlers, every one of them is different, but a couple of them have hit that point where they were trying to learn colors and they just could not figure it out, and they were always getting the colors wrong. And I remember with our firstborn, we just stressed out, especially my husband. He just stressed out, like he doesn't know his colors. We have to teach him his colors. And eventually, you know, we just kind of let it go, and we read little books and everything, but he didn't really get it until suddenly he just got it. He understood colors. He could identify the colors, and through natural life, he knew colors. And so I was thinking about that experience when I was watching my son with his language arts. And the thought occurred to me that maybe he's just not ready for formal language arts. And maybe my 2nd grader and my 1st grader, who I had kind of started on formal language arts, just aren't ready for language arts, and maybe that's okay. So I had this idea, maybe I will just experiment a little bit this year and just drop language arts completely. I'm just going to drop it. I'm going to drop grammar, spelling, writing completely with our formal language arts and just see what happens. And I did that. I ended up stopping the formal language arts. I didn't throw it away or give it away or anything. I just put it in a box and put it in a closet somewhere. And I said, instead of doing that, we're just going to do reading a lot of good literature like we were already doing, but, you know, maybe do that more, fill that time with more reading, and focus on copy work more, because we had been doing some copy work, and dictation. So we were doing dictation and copy work and narration eventually, but dictation, copy work, and reading is what I ended up doing for their language arts. And then when my son, you know, he started to kind of come to the end of that time, and he was going into maybe mid-4th grade, and I thought, okay, how about if we introduce a language arts program that instead of trying to teach years and years of language arts over these first, you know, early elementary years, how about we find a focused language arts program, because I believed he was ready then to really tackle it, and have a shortened, focused time to do spelling and grammar together. And so that's what we did. We ended up picking up Logic of English, and we started working on that together as a focused language arts time. And he got it. He understood that better than he had understood those ideas and concepts before, because I believe he was just ready for it, and he had seen and interacted with other language pieces through, you know, selecting copy work and selecting dictation pieces. He had interacted with those, with literature in that way, and had seen those patterns of grammar and speech and spelling. And so by the time we got to formal language arts, it clicked for him and it worked. So that is what we're going to try with our first and second graders. We're not going to do formal language arts with them. We're just going to do copy work and dictation and narration, and focus on that until I observe that they are ready for formal language arts. And so as we're doing this experiment, I'm thinking, okay, am I insane? Do other people do this? So I started doing a little bit of research, and it turns out it's pretty common. It's pretty common for families to wait on formal language arts and formal writing until their kids are a little bit older. And they rely on those more gentle Charlotte Mason methods in those early years. And so as I was researching, I came across several families who had explained online that this is what they do, which gave me a little bit of confidence, and it also inspired me to look for other ways to incorporate Charlotte Mason methods and ideas into our homeschool, since obviously it was working for us in this area. And frankly, it took a huge load off me. We were able to more, and I'll explain it in a little bit, but we were able to more naturally do our language arts and, you know, gently guide our children in these areas and teach them when they're ready, instead of just shoving worksheets at them because we think we have to. So let me see. I'm totally going off page right now. So we were researching, so yeah, several families had waited to cover this until later, and it was working for them. So I started looking into more Charlotte Mason methods. And like I said, I'm a busy mom of 6. I have a lot of things on my plate. I started getting all of these different books on Charlotte Mason, but honestly, they were kind of collecting dust on my Kindle or whatever. But I just could not get around to making the time to sift through these massive volumes that were beautiful and inspiring, but I just needed, I needed to know what to do or what to try. I need practical steps. I'm that lady. I need things to be simple and practical and bite-sized. So then I remembered that Cindy West over Our Journey Westward had this Charlotte Mason guide. So it's Charlotte Mason Homeschooling in 18 Easy Steps. So I downloaded that and read it while I was on a plane, and I was so absorbed in it. It was perfect. It's just what I needed. It boils down the Charlotte Mason steps, or the Charlotte Mason tips and methods, into easy bite-sized chunks, and then it tells you this is how you can implement it on a practical day-to-day basis in your home. This is what it looks like in our home. Here are some different schedules. Here are some things that, I adjust. I may not go strictly Charlotte Mason on this, and it was gold. I loved it. So I highly recommend you check that out. Based on that, we started incorporating other things in our homeschool that have really enriched our homeschool. And again, if you go read that post I did this morning, you can see all the different things that we either expanded on or introduced. And one of the things was narration. Narration we were doing that a little bit, just, what did you read? That kind of thing. But we weren't really digging into narration much or using it as an educational tool. And I had no idea how valuable and simple, which both of those things together is like a homeschool mom's dream come true. Valuable and simple this narration tool is. Basically what we do now with our language arts is when our kids, when we do anything with them when they're little, we start reading to them, and then we ask them to tell us the story back in their own words. That's how it starts. It's super duper simple. And then as the kids get older, it gets more and more complex. So in the morning, when we do our morning time together as a family, we'll read our Bible passage, and then I'll pause at different points, and I start with the youngest, and I work my way around the table to the oldest, and I ask them, okay, what did that say? In your own words, what was God saying in this piece? And they tell me back. And then, the little one says Jesus every time. I'm like, that's right, it's about Jesus. But, by the time we get to the older one, you can tell that their narration skills have developed. And then my oldest two, they have reading challenge every day, which just means they read for 40 minutes on their own. They read from a selection that they picked, and then we alternate with a selection I pick. And that just exposes them to other things besides the things that they might fall into a rut for, but it keeps it fun and not, drudgery. But they read their 40 minutes, and then they just have to come tell me what they read about. And the more into it, the more they explain it, and we just practice their narration skills that way. And through narration, they learn listening skills when they're doing read aloud. They learn comprehension skills when they're doing their own private reading time. They learn how to, it's basically writing except orally, instead of doing written or narration, they're doing oral narration, and it helps them practice and get instant feedback from me as we're doing that, so that eventually they can do written narration, and it comes more naturally because they have been practicing that orally, and then that coupled with their dictation and their copywork and interacting with good literature that way, when they get to actual written narration, things just seem to click and to go easier for them. So that is working really well for us, and basically I just observe. I watch them and I decide when I think they're ready for the next step. So they start with simple narration, and then once they start, drawing or writing, when they're writing all over things, Mom, I left you a little note, when, they're 4 or 5 or whatever, then we start simple letter formation. And once they can do basic handwriting, they start copy work. And then once I notice that their copy work doesn't need a whole lot of correction, and they're doing it really accurately, and it's they're able to interact more with the actual literature or the actual piece instead of just focusing on their handwriting, we move on to dictation. So through dictation, they end up learning a ton. That's a huge leap, because then they go from copywork, where they're just copying words, to listening and then having to put that down on paper. So you would, watch their punctuation and their spelling and all these different things. And then we move on, or I shouldn't say move on. At some point I realized, okay, they're doing pretty well with that. And then we incorporate notebooking. And with notebooking, basically with all of our subjects like science, history, whatever, they will, when they get to a certain age, they will start doing notebooking pages where they're basically doing written narration of what they have been reading in their science and history, etc. I didn't mean to go off on notebooking that much, or on narration that much, but narration and copywork and dictation have been a huge blessing for us, and it's plenty. It's not only plenty, it's pretty rigorous, and it really sets them up for success for those later years when they're getting into formal writing and formal language arts. The other thing is living books. This is something we were already doing before. We use a living books curriculum for our history and our science. We do a lot of missionary biography reading and basically make unit studies out of those. So we were already doing a lot of that. But living books is where you'll see a lot of Charlotte Mason tips and ideas come in. So let's see. What else? Oh, the other big thing we added from reading that book from Cindy West was art and music appreciation. And art and music appreciation and poetry and all those things, those got dropped before because I just didn't have time. I was just trying to get them to do their math. So getting to art and music and poetry and actually being able to incorporate it was perfect. And you can read the blog post where I explain how we do it. It's super simple. But basically, we just found some really good resources that I liked for these different areas. And then once a day, we just do a piece from one of those resources. We don't need to go into those subjects in depth at this age, at these ages, but we get to explore art together. We get to explore music together in a simple, engaging way. And it adds beauty to our homeschool. And it doesn't add stress or burden to me. And basically what we do is we do our morning time, like I said, where we have Bible study and all of these things. And at the tail end of it, right before we sign off, we do a little bit of our, basically I add in either an art study where we look at a piece of art and we discuss it, and we might discuss the artist. Or we look at, listen to a piece of music and talk about the composer or the time period or whatever. Or we just read some poetry and talk about it and discuss it. So those are some really simple ways. There's lots of ways for you, homeschool mama, to incorporate easy Charlotte Mason methods into your homeschool in intentional ways. So I would suggest that you take one of the ideas you heard from me today, or you go to that blog post that I'll leave you where you can enter the giveaway, and you can grab one of those ideas and run with it and see how it works in your homeschool and how your kids like it, and just adjust and adapt to your needs. Or I just highly recommend getting that ebook from Cindy West and reading through it. It will give you a guide. I use it as a reference often, and see how you can incorporate Charlotte Mason in your homeschool. All right, so one more time to enter the flash giveaway, comment on this post. I'm going to leave you the link. Go check out Cindy West's Our Journey Westward store and tell me which product you would like to have if you win the giveaway. And then join our Homeschool Successfully Facebook group. As soon as I sign off, I'll leave you the links. Go do that. Comment on here by the end of the day on Thursday. And I hope this was helpful to you. And I hope it just encouraged you and inspired you to find other resources, to find other ways to, when you see a problem in your homeschool and something's not quite right, a lot of times all you need to do is adjust a little bit. Do what's creative, do what works for your family, collect ideas, but do what works for you. All right, homeschool moms, I'll talk to you later. Bye.